the real star of the production writers. Hello everybody, I'm E.C. Henry, and I would like to welcome you to another one of my little mini video presentations. Today I'll be discussing something near and dear to my heart, writer and creative sort. Something way down at the bottom of my shirt here, epic fantasy. This is where I started as a writer. Way back in 93, 94, when I was living in Boise, Idaho, I had an idea for an epic fantasy story. Didn't know what I was doing at the time when I lived in Boise. I was just busting my chops. I just had an idea for a story, and I was writing it on this graph paper, and it turned out to be Legend of Thars. Later, I got a computer and started typing it in, and was working on it. I think I got a draft done by 98, and then worked on it still until about 2001. Then I got into screenwriting and wrote a whole bunch of stories. I think I've written 25 spec scripts since 2001. And started with Give It Up for Chimpy, and my latest was Kathy Smith Conquers DuBose High School. So anyway, I've written a lot of different stuff, but epic fantasy is where I started, and it's what I want to do. It looks like it's going to be 5 books. I was just putting together the last one today. I wrote all these chapters many years ago. I thought I was just going to write one big book. I mean, I thought I was writing something like Stephen King's The Stand, something just big and epic and grand in scale. And the story is, I think my story lives up to C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia or J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I put that up with that. That's my brass ring. That's what I want to be compared to. So, those are my standards of excellence. I don't know if you like that or not, or, Lord of the Rings, it was popular with mid-2000s. There was a lot of movies. But anyway, so I'm going to read some of it to you, and then we'll discuss it. I guess I should set this up a little bit, tell you a little bit more about what the story is about. So what A Legend of Thars is about, it's a story about two high school seniors from the year of 1987. That's when they were about to graduate. Looks like they're about to graduate, but while they're on the beach together, they're digging up some Thars memorabilia these to play a paper game, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, their own made-up version when they were in school. And they used to enjoy it to play it as friends together. And one of the friends buried it in the sand at one point as they were kind of mad at each other. They were in a spat. And they didn't think they'd ever play it again. And then when they got back together on the beach in Long Beach, they decided, yeah, we'll go check it out. So while they're there, an angel visits them and takes one of them into heaven. And there, he accepts a commission from an angel to go to the world of Thars to redeem an elf from a blood curse. So that sets up the overarching story. It's all set up in the prologue. And then after that, you're following the two protagonists, Dale Evans and Ron Wilson, on their Odyssey quest in Thars, where one of them's trying to redeem an angel, an elf at the time who went on to be an angel, and the other is just trying to find his way. He thinks since Ron, he actually did most of the work on the Thars game, he thinks he's going there to rule. He thinks him and Dale are engaged in kind of a game. It's God's way of, letting them have fun in this world. But it ends up as a little more than Ron bargained for. And anyway, it does have 3 love stories. So I love writing love stories. It's a lot of fun for me. One's epic romance. A lot of it happens in a castle. It's between Dale and this elfin princess, a really pretty girl. Let's imagine kind of like Taylor Swift there. Even with Lacey Graybaugh, I imagine her either Rianne or Lacey as Taylor. But anyway, so they got this one where Dale is romancing this princess, and then Ron gets a romance too. He is interested in his benefactor's maid. They develop a love interest, and it's kind of like this doomed romance. Unfortunately, the maid's got some real problems, and the benefactor is involved with the occult, and it's not good. So Ron that's part of his struggle, and it's really kind of interesting because he's kind of likes this heavy metal. He goes into Thars, and he's a high school teen from 87. I don't know how familiar you are with the 80s, but, heavy metal was big back then. I was into it for a long time, but I never got to be a real big headbanger or anything like that, but I did like it and was familiar with a lot of that stuff from that time. I graduated in 87. Coincidence? No. We'll get into that a little bit, but anyway, the last romance that I have in there is in book 4 and 5, and that's probably my favorite. It's a swashbuckling romance. It's got the elfin prince and this girl who's the henchman's ex mistress, great love, and she has a big role in the story. She doesn't think she does. She thinks she's just this girl that's been cast off to the side. But when the henchman takes an interest in her and he starts taking over cities, it's really, really interesting that the elf and this girl, to see if they really made a good enough connection, when things really matter, when they hit ahead. And it's a swashbuckling romance. They're always getting chased, or people are coming after them, and they have to fight their way out of things. It's really fun to write. So if you want a high-rolling romance, hold on to the end of the series. The last couple books they're really good. I think people are going to love them. So it really ends really strong. The story has a very, very strong ending. Anyway, just want to get you jazzed about it a little bit. So I'm going to read roughly 2 pages of it. So here's what it is. Dragon and Redeemer. This is my prologue. So I'm going to read almost 2 pages, and we'll see what you think. So hopefully it's good. We're going to find out. Dragon and Redeemer, Remembrance, Part 1. 2 of the bluest eyes that you will ever see looked on this side of eternity, looked ahead with staunch resolve. Deep, pure and penetrating, irises with a color so vibrant it could rival most pristine of alpine lakes. 2 sky blue portals that looked to be ethereal in nature, but such are the things of the Holy Father's handiwork. Objects that not only serve a practical purpose, but also have a spiritual dimension to them as well. Our eyes, a place where a measure of the divine spark can be found, a gift given by a loving Creator, a treasure that not only allows us to see in the physical world, but also serves as a lasting reminder that when our life in the flesh ends, there is a spiritual life within us that transcends beyond the limits of the grave. Now, did these eyes belong to some random nobody? No, perish the thought. These sky blue portals belong to a prince, an elfin prince named Aaron Greybaugh to be exact. Since the beginning of Thars, various members of the Greybaugh family had played key roles in shaping its history. Aaron was simply the latest champion that had blossomed to fruition off the grapevine of Greybaugh heroes. Now, like it or not, the pressure was on. The Allies had staked their future and continuance of nations which had stood for centuries on one prince. One prince whom they hoped would live up to his family's reputation. Only in this case, this Greybaugh champion would be tasked with doing something that had never been done before. Defeat a giant fire-breathing dragon on the field of battle. It didn't matter that Aaron had yet to reach his 20th birthday when the dragon dropped down out of the sky and blocked the Allies' caravan's attempt return to Cromine. There was no debate who would be representing them on the field of battle. It had to be a Greybaugh. And so, with a key point in Thars' history about to be written, the Allies' chosen redeemer was Aaron Greybaugh. No one knew why the Borax loyalists chose to flee north when the Allies conquered Cromine. Cromine was the Cromanite capital city, the Borax's last stronghold. Once the city fell to the Allies, Zashenwurtl's loyalists had no refuge to retreat into. North of the Cromine River, once the irrigated influences of farms ended, a desolate wasteland began. This vast region was commonly referred to as the Great Cromanite Northern Desert. Over the years, many noble-minded explorers ventured into this waterless death trap, yet none returned with verifiable proof of where this region ended. Thankfully, Allied leadership only had to go in about 10 miles into this endless sandscape until their scouts caught up with those who fled. Advanced scouts on horseback caught the Borax loyalists attempting to hide in the caves of some low-lying hills in hope of giving their pursuers the slip. But with all these caves being shallow, dead ends, once found, those trapped inside had no choice but to engage their pursuers. Facing a bloodbath, the loyalists surrendered. But no sooner had they been secured in caged wagons than the dragon made its presence known. In dramatic fashion, this fire-breathing reptile swooped down out of the sky and blocked their return path to Cromine. With no choice but to do so, Allied leadership engaged this primeval monster. The dragon's demands were simple. It wanted the immediate release of all of Zashenwurtl's loyalists, Then it wanted the Allies' unconditional surrender. Do that, and the dragon said it wouldn't burn them all up. 2 of the Allied prisoners were high-ranking members of the Borax cult. Morton Rayant served as their high general, while his wife Hishena served as their chief ringleader in the Borax cult ceremonies and incantations. There was no way that the Allied leadership was letting either of those 2 go without a fight. Outside the dragon's surprise intervention, this 2-year war was over. The Allies had won. Yet because of this unexpected development, one final battle had to be waged. And what was agreed upon was a one-on-one fight to the death. Dragon versus the Allies' chosen champion. Unable to see beyond the gray soot of the dragon's homemade sandstorm, Aaron looked down. There about his shoes, sand and debris swept around like an earth-brown serpent. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. The maraca rustle of sand was drowned out by the baritone pounding of Aaron's heart. Likewise, the veins atop Aaron's right hand became more pronounced as the grip on his sword intensified. More and more these life-giving streams of blood were beginning to look like a series of water balloons that were about to burst. To say that Aaron Greybaugh was nervous was an understatement. The Elfin Prince's anticipation for the upcoming battle was reaching a fever pitch. Aaron ran the thumb of his right hand over the engraved message on the hilt of his sword, which read, "To God be the glory." It would be wrong to say that Aaron ran his thumb across that godly epigram in hopes of catching some luck. To God be the glory is a statement of faith, not some random flippant platitude muttered in hopes of getting fortune from some random nebulous supernatural force that could be swayed by signaling it in this manner. No, what Aaron was doing was more in line with what God-centered athletes do moments before the onset of a sporting contest. They say a quick prayer. And if ever there was time to beseech the Most High for his favor, it was now. So that's how the story begins. So, hopefully that captures your imagination a little bit. It's a long dragon fight. It's, almost 100 pages. So, it goes on and it frames the rest of the story. So, when I originally wrote this, I kind of wrote this as, I had a lot of bad things happen in my life in high school. I felt rejected by my peers and, by the kids in my own class, man. I used to, hang around all by myself in high school. It was a really lonely existence. I had a couple friends out that I rode motorcycles with out here, and we were friends for a while. And, it just, I don't know. I always wanted somebody in my own grade level to take me under their wing and invite me to parties and, open up things up for me socially, and it never happened. And I held a grudge in my heart for my senior class for a long, long time. The jocks, the girls, and, all of them. There were some nice people in high school, but they weren't in my grade level. I met some nice people. They were a few years younger. They actually tried to help me out, but during my senior year, I think they felt pity on me. But I don't know. So that's kind of give you a little bit of framework where I'm coming from. My edges have softened quite a bit. I'm 51 now, almost 52. You don't really, after a while, your high school, whatever happened, you just kind of doesn't matter anymore. So my edges have softened that way. I'm not looking to get revenge on anybody or anything like that anymore. I'm just trying to write a good story, but I just wanted to give you some framework where I'm coming from, because if you did read this is a story that has a lot of me in it. And I poured my heart out into it. In a lot of the characters, I try to make them vivid. They're not all the same. I have thieves, and I have henchmen, and I have people that are genuinely good, pastors, preachers, and people that are inspired, that got God's word in them. The idea is you're using the Holy Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. The God of this world is the same God as that world. And if you don't believe the same things I do, that's cool. I'm not going to force things down your throat. In fact, you can enjoy this story and not pick up on that. Like C.S. Lewis's Aslan, that was a depiction of Jesus. How cool is that? I got that. And I'm like, wow, that is really clever. That's really good. And I wanted to echo some of that in this. And that, I tried. It points, I tried to make, like I said, not to be overbearing. You're trying to entertain people, trying to entertain everybody. Even if you look at things differently than me, we all look at things differently. At some point, not everybody's going to view the world like you. I just hope I wrote well enough to entertain you. That was my plan. There's a lot of different ways of being entertaining. what I try to do, if you read anything of mine, I try to give people a lot of stuff. I'm of a lot of stuff kind of guy. I don't like just one thing. Oh, you gotta like this. That's all you got. You got one character. You really got to engage with them. That's baloney. I like giving people a lot of stuff in the hopes that they'll find something they like. So just to give you an idea, that's kind of how I am. I kind of throw the kitchen pot at everything I've ever written. So, a lot of people have said that you got to narrow your focus. You got to just focus on the central character. I'm like, it's not who I am. I tried. I mean, at times I think I've written some good characters, but I'm a big person, man. I world build. That's what I did. Writing Praetorium, the Commune. Those are other stories I wrote. Even Cowboy Lane Diaries, Indians in the Ancient Plains. Those are big stories, and there's stuff happening. It's not just one person. But hopefully I write some characters that you like. So I try to throw a lot of things at you. It's just how I roll. In the hopes you'll identify with something. So I love romance, so it's a lot of fun because I never had any. I was curious what the other side was doing. Anyway. It's always been kind of interesting to me. But there's also fights if you like that. There's monsters in this. There's I got going to Rand's tomb. They have to destroy this wizard, and Heshena, something you don't know. You find out later in the story. She was belligerent at one point, and God cursed her and made her into a giant spider. So she. The best thing is in Rand's tomb, they were cursed to live there. And they lived over, they were cursed there in 70 years ago when Aaron had the ill-fated blood curse shortly after they were cursed. And they went in there and she was a spider, but she was pregnant. She had a couple centaur spiders. And later in life, I think it's book 4, you get to meet them. And they're cool. If you like monsters, they're centaurs crawling on the ceiling and trying to attack Dale and his friends that are trying to put an end to Morton and his wife, and they're still involved with the occult, trying to keep an eye on everything. And their time's finally they're gonna have to match wits with Dale now. After he grows, he starts off this kind of wimpy guy, not wimpy, but he's unproven. He's needs an adventure himself, and he finds the great love of his life, and she gets taken from him in the story, and he finds all these friends that he never had in high school, and now he's got them all, and he needs to still needs to prove himself. So that's kind of what the story's about. The same with Ron. He wanted adventure, and finally he gets it, and his ends up a little bit more tragic than Dale's, unfortunately. But those two characters they're really two sides of my coin, heads and tails. Dale is kind of my better side, and Ron is kind of my darker side. So, not everybody is just, an angel and stuff. Everybody has shades. So I definitely have shades. So you see that if you read it, Thars. So hopefully I've perked your interest in it. Thanks for putting up with me.